show, and they do all kinds of things to themselves in the carriage. But that you can, most of those, if they're clean to start with, you can usually fix it. A few little wet wipes here and there is all it takes. Okay, so you've got them washed, you've got them ready to the show, you've got them to the show. What else do you do? There's a few little tricks you can use. If you'll see, most people, they put a little dressing on their combs. That's nothing magical. It's either mineral oil, Vaseline, maybe a little witch hazel thrown in, some people like to use. If you'll talk to these long-time people that have been showing, they have their magic, but it only takes a little bit. You get to shows and you see it dripping down the sides, that's way too much. You see some people, they like to use different hair products on their chickens that spray on to give them a nice sheen. It only takes a little bit if you're going to use that. When you get so much that the judge picks it up and it's oily, that can do some damage later on. Because that oil picks up dirt and it can actually damage feathers. So if you're going to use those, use it in moderation. Where you get your best sheen is your conditioning beforehand. It may surprise you, as a judge, I can tell how people are taking care of their birds by their feather conditioning. People don't understand, they think, well, why are these judges looking at the Old English and they're doing most of it by feel, and they're looking around. You can tell a lot by a bird by feeling. Old English especially. You want to feel a good solid bird. You want to get hard feather. And you do that by feel. You can look at it all day, but you can't tell that until you feel it. So, yes. There is a very big difference. The question was, is there a difference between a solid bird and a fat bird? Yes, there is. On the Old English, when I'm talking about firm, the Cornish, you want firm, you don't want fat. You can actually feel the muscle there. And that's from good feed. If they're fat, yeah, coachings, yeah, they get fat, and you can feel them. But they should still have enough muscle underneath where they get their fluffinesses from their feathers. So you really need to know your breed and know what you want. Old English, people don't understand why some people do so well. A lot of it's the way they take care of them beforehand. They're just firm. They feel a certain way when you what's that? Exercise too. And that's true for any bird. Coachings, they don't need as much exercise. They do real well just lounging around. Yes. Foraging is exercise. My white leghorns run from coyotes. That's a lot of exercise. But they're running out. They're going to stay in their best conditions running out. Now, I've told you how important it is to get your birds ready for a show. People sometimes get mad. I have plucked leghorns out of a tree the night before. They've won champion largemouth. But that's very unusual. And I don't usually tell people that. Because other people that have coachings that have been washing all week, they frown on it. Okay.
Two things you need to talk to them is you have to understand is cutting feathers, also how to train a bird to be wired, make it so
Okay, Dan brought up some good points. What about feathers? You see some that on your blackbird you've got a few white tips. Oh, I'll just cut them off. No, you don't do that. Oh, I'll just color them. No, you don't do that. That is something you're really going to have to watch out for, especially if you have blackbirds or like a BB red. They're going to get natural feathers. If you are sitting there with a black magic marker, which I have seen at a national show, that's faking. And a good judge can usually tell. You shouldn't do that. That should be part of your culling process.
Training birds.
Another thing is training birds. Training birds is nothing more simple than putting them into a cage. Now, I say you can. I pluck my leghorns out of a tree. Yeah, the females are usually pretty well behaved, but if I did that with a male, it's not going to be good. They're used to running wild, and they're not going to take well to a coop. So they really need to be trained to a coop. So they're going to act their best when they go to a show. If you have a good-looking bird that you see running around the yard, you take him to a show, and the judge comes around and he'll go straight to the top of the coop. So your birds that you think you want to show, you are going to need to keep them up and need to get them used to a cage. They may not like it, but it doesn't take them long to get used to a cage and feel comfortable. This goes with chickens, ducks, anything. Call ducks especially. Indies, you kind of want them wild. Yes. Both. They can do damage to their feathers. Even taking a bird to a show, they can do damage to the feathers. That's going to happen. If they're calm to begin with, it's not as bad. You know, some breeds are worse than others. Sumatras, they're nuts. If you take them to a show, first of all, you got to catch them. That's the biggest challenge. And they're another breed. They do best free ranging. So you may have entered a bunch of Sumatras, but hopefully you can catch them. The judge should be able to judge a bird, but he's got to be able to catch it too. The Old English are a challenge sometimes because you open up and you get a whole line of males that all they want to do is fight you. You can't really hold that against them, but some judges do. It's not unusual to have blood running down your hand by the time you get through judging the Old English. That's just kind of the character of the breed. Hopefully somebody's worked with them enough they don't do that. But you get some birds that are vicious. I know somebody's white cochins that will eat you alive. And it's just his. It's not the rest of them. So I think there's something to that. But the bird's personality is not a big part of it, but it can play in the back of their mind.
How long do you leave them up when you're trying to train them?
When you're trying to train them, usually a couple weeks beforehand is when you want to start. It doesn't hurt to pick them up, pull them out of the coop. You may want to do that to look at their feathers, make sure everything's going. Along the process, you need to be aware of how the birds do. You can't take the bird to a show and then